But when he gets here, I think that we should ask him the questions that he misses. He's in Trenton. He's working for us right now, so we can't hold it against him. And I knew he was going to be late anyway. So I'd like to introduce Will Cunningham, Sean Thumb, and Nancy Youngman. Before I turn this over to our moderator, anyone here who is from Northfield, could you raise your hand? Anybody here from Northfield would like to join the Northfield Democrats? I have some business cards with my phone number on the back. So, and I'd like to introduce Paul Utz. Paul is one of our members, and he has done a great job. He's going to be doing all the questioning. Thank you.
Thank you, Heather. It's okay. Can you move down the mic? Can everybody hear me just fine? Okay.
No.
First of all, I want to thank all of you for coming out and participating in our democracy. I mean, this is truly democracy in action when you have an American Legion Hall filled to capacity with people interested in our election process. So give yourself It's really good to see everybody. And I also want to thank our candidates. We've got a tough road ahead, and we really appreciate you putting yourself out there and coming tonight to meet with the voters. This is what it's all about, and I thank you all for coming. Thank you. Okay. Our district has been represented by Representative Lobiando for almost 26 years, demonstrating that once elected, re-election tends to favor the incumbent. It is in all of our interest not to damage the Democratic candidate, whoever that is, in the primary process, so that we enter the general election clean. To that end, we want to ask all of our candidates the same question, and limiting the time for your answer for 3 reasons. One, in the interest of time, obviously. Also, and more importantly, you will not only probably debate each other, but eventually you'll debate the winner of the Republican primary. And lastly, many of your constituents will only hear your sound bites, and the news media will only air your position if you can distill your words and speak efficiently. Though many of these questions make a short answer difficult, it is necessary skill set for the job ahead. So please limit your answer to 2 minutes. Our timekeeper will have a computer there. You'll see the time ticking down, and she'll give you a 30-second warning. And I would ask the members of the club, I don't think we had enough ballots for everybody, but to sort of keep score. We want to know if the candidate answers the question that was asked and how much interest you have in that particular question. I think that as we distill that, if you hand these in at the end, it would be informative to the candidates to know what's important to you all and where they hit the mark and where they missed the mark. I think that's it.
For 1 to 5, so 1 is the lowest score.
Okay, so 1 is low, 5 is the top score when you're ranking their answers to the question on a variety of issues that we'll bring up tonight. And I think this feedback will be helpful. Okay, and I'm sorry Senator Andrew is late, but we will probably want to ask him the questions. So I think how we'll start this. We'll start the first question with you, but each question will move it down 1 so that you're not always answering the question first. All right, you want the microphone? Or are you doing introduction? Let's have a little opening statement. And if you could, limit it to like 3 minutes, but yes, if you could do an opening statement for about 3 minutes.
Thank you so much. I want to thank the Northfield Democrats for hosting this important event. Northfield will always have a special place in my heart. My life changed here 15 years ago. I was a scared, impoverished teenager interviewing to get into the college of his dreams. And, someone in this community, a Brown alum, believed in me. And that's the reason my trajectory started at being a public servant happened right here in Northfield. I'm forever grateful. But the struggles that continued since that moment, since 2003, it's continued in this district. Not much has changed in all these years, and for all these years, my opponent has been in Trenton. Now, Jeff Andrew says he knows Trenton. Let me tell you, folks, Trenton's not D.C. The fact that he thinks shooting makes him ready for DC is evidence to me that he's not ready for this job. I have the experience and the results, proven results in DC. I've written education policy for Senator Cory Booker. I fought on the Hill as an investigator of pharmaceutical companies in the House Oversight Committee, calling out pharmaceutical companies when they price gouge, when they exploited loopholes. I fought against the Trump administration when they tried to cut and take away monument status of Bears Ears in Utah and other environmental protections they tried to take away. I fought on the Hill to restore accountability and compassion to our government, rather than my opponent, who voted side by side with Republicans on callous legislation and trend, undermining the critical efforts, the hard work of New Jerseyans, hardworking New Jerseyans, working class, middle class New Jerseyans. Now, when I talk about that voting record, I can point explicitly to votes that have taken that have harmed people in this community. I don't have to look that far. I look at my family and my experience. When you talk about paid sick leave, you talk about minimum wage increases and votes taken against those interests, I can look at those votes as reasons I was homeless in high school. I know there are other children in this community who have been negatively impacted by votes Jeff Van Drew has taken. Now, we have a real opportunity in this race. We can, together we can and we will flip the House. But our majority will be slim. Every vote will matter once we do it. We can't afford to send an establishment candidate to take to Washington who has been anointed by the privileged and the powerful, but does not have the record showing he's capable of the results we need and deserve. We cannot afford business as usual when business as usual is not happening in the White House. I've gone from being homeless to House Representatives. My practical on-the-ground experience will enable me to get the results you need, that we all need. And if I'm allowed the honor of being your congressman for the 2nd Congressional District of New Jersey, I look forward to tonight's spirited debate. Thank you.
All right, so first, thank you everybody for coming out tonight. It means a lot to see this place as packed as what it is. I also want to thank the Northfield Dems for hosting this event. And I want to thank my fellow candidates who are here participating in what democracy should be and what democracy is. And before I get started, I have to give a quick shout out to my amazing wife, Natalie, and my 2 awesome sons, Landon and Carson, who are home right now watching the live stream. I love all of you. And Landon, make sure you go to bed because you have school tomorrow. Gotta remind my 4-year-old about that. Preschool is tough. So, my name is Sean Thom, and I am an educator in Camden, New Jersey. And I am standing here in front of you today because of the students that I work with. And all this goes back to 2016 when Trump was elected president, and I got to go stand in front of my students and have conversations with them about what this country looked like. And my students were afraid, my students were scared, and they were very afraid of what was going to happen with their family members and the racism in this country and where their family members were going to be deported. And it was then that my students asked me to stand up and fight for them and to run for Congress. And that is why we're here right now. See, I love my family. My students are my extended family. And I have a huge extended family here in South Jersey. I think we're just under 750,000 people in our congressional district. So when I stood up to fight for our students, I'm standing up to fight for everybody in this district as well. See, for the last 20 plus years, we've dealt with what moderation is. We've dealt with what a moderate is. And has put us where we are today. I don't think many people sitting in this room can look and say that South Jersey is better now than what it was when Frank Loviano took office. See, leadership is not about being moderates. Leadership is about taking risks. Look at all the great leaders in the history of our nation and the history of our world. Our founding fathers and mothers were not moderates. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was not moderate. Rosa Parks was not moderate. Mahatma Gandhi was not moderate. Barack Obama is not moderate. It's going to take much more than moderates to really flip this district. And it's taken 20 plus years for us to get to where we are today, and we're not going to be able to flip that overnight. But what we need is bold ideas, and people to be able to stand up and have those conversations about really important values like Medicare for All and debt-free college and things I'm sure we're going to talk about here today. As somebody who's endorsed by Our Revolution New Jersey, the Bernie Sanders Action Group, I am that person to bring that mold to South Jersey. I spent my entire career, my entire life fighting for the small person, fighting for my students and fighting for my family. It's what I'm going to do with my family here in CD2. Thank you.
Ready? I have a pretty big voice, but I'm going to use this anyway. All right. All right, good evening, and I want to thank the Democratic Club and Eileen Tolan for providing this opportunity for me as well as the other candidates to speak. Now, I'm not going to be up here today and tell you any lies or make any promises I can't keep. I'm here to explain to you who I am, why I'm running, and to convince you to support my campaign, because I'm sure that you will agree with me that when America advances and prospers, so does its people. Now, let me start off by saying that I am the voice of the common man. I've suffered great losses. I've had close family and friends die from addiction, drugs, gun violence. I've been a caretaker for the sick. I've had the responsibility of taking care of elderly parents. I've sacrificed to provide for an education for my children. I've walked picket lines for better pay and better working conditions. I've been laid off and unemployed more times than I care to think of. But most importantly, I've impacted change by advocating for working and middle-class families, children, and their communities. Supporting my campaign ensures that your voice will be heard in Washington. I will use my voice to advocate for reform of a system that only works for 10% of the people who have a vested interest in keeping things exactly as they are. For many career politicians, regardless of party affiliation, holding office is the #1 priority. These lawmakers look out only for themselves and the special interests who pay and support their campaigns. I always say make sure and follow the money trail, and you'll see who that person, whose interest they'll vote in. I'm going to change that narrative. I'll work for the people who elect me. It doesn't matter if you're a Republican, a Democrat, a progressive, or an independent. The cold hard fact is that for most Americans, the government and the officials we've elected do not work on our behalf. The government and lawmakers cater almost exclusively to the corporate elite and the super wealthy. Average citizens like you and me, the 80%. Now, we know how it works. You've got 10% up the top. That's where all the wealth is at. Then, of course, you've got the 10% on the bottom. These are the people who get the entitlements from the government. These are the people who are the disabled people, the poor people. And then you got all of us in the middle. The college grads saddled with over $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 of student loans. Their parents who are mortgaging their homes. The middle and working class people who are living from paycheck to paycheck. People struggling to pay medical bills. Those who can no longer afford health insurance. Retirees who are worried that they will outlive their savings and that safety net programs such as Social Security and Medicare are at risk of being cut or drastically reduced. We don't really matter. There is a disregard for our needs. The century-old principle to promote the general welfare of citizens has expired, and increasingly the voters realize this. And we are going to change that narrative. We will no longer be silenced. Democratic Party leaders have tried to convince me that this is a conservative district. Now, I don't know how conservative our district really is, but what I do know is that our district is broke. And you have to ask yourself how and why this is the situation. What has the party leadership done to rectify the situation? And most importantly, why hasn't the party leadership demonstrated a commitment to a stronger economy? What have they been doing for the past 20 years? Why haven't creating jobs and building New Jersey's economy been their priority? Where is the tax relief for the 80% of American people? Why have so many people been denied the opportunity to secure a decent living in retirement? Where are the financial incentives for small business?
down the line, and the next question will go to Sean. Okay, last week's school shooting once again reminds us of the problem with guns in America. The Second Amendment states, a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. The first part of this amendment is often ignored. What does the first part of the Second Amendment mean to you? And what are one or two examples of new federal regulations that you would propose that you think would help this national problem?
Yeah, I feel a lot of it in the 2 minutes, but I'm going to try my best. Now, when we talk about the tragedy that occurred in Florida last week, what is most frustrating about these incidents is that they happened before, and people use it as justification that because we can't prevent all of it, we shouldn't try to do anything to prevent any of it. That is malarkey, as Joe Biden would say. It is one of those things where I graduated from law school. I respect the Constitution. I respect the Second Amendment. But there are certain things that we can do to ensure that we protect American lives and children's lives most of all. All three of us are teachers. We know that a school should be the safe haven for children, period. No excuses, no exceptions. Now, I think there are common sense solutions that the American public is behind. 62% of people against semi-automatic, 67% against bump stocks, 88% against stalkers being banned from purchasing guns. 89% for universal background checks. This is infuriating for me sitting in D.C., knowing the good people of this country are not having their voices heard. I won't tolerate it. It cannot continue in this way. And it's one of those things where you won't ever have to question my loyalties on this issue. Common sense solutions will be a priority when I'm your congressperson. I will be out front, I'll be vocal on these issues, and I will make sure your voices are heard. Thank you.
So as far as the first part of that question, having a well-regulated militia, as a progressive gun owner myself, I am a firm supporter of Second Amendment rights. I also recognize that we need to do much more to protect the people in our country. So some of the things that we're talking about right now and that I would like to see happen, for starters, is to ban semi-automatic weapons and assault rifles around the entire country, not just here in New Jersey. Universal background checks are non-negotiable for us. I also want to start actually testing. We have the opportunity to drive a car. We have to take a driver's test. We have to pass that test, a written test, a skill test. There is no reason why it is not the same in this country. As a gun owner myself, I would have no issue at all with doing that. You look at what other countries do, it's 3-4 month waiting periods. We can start talking about having adaptive testing. So when you're actually taking a test, the questions change based on the degree of the answers that you provide. We use this in schools on a regular basis to assess students and their knowledge levels. There's no reason why this can't be applied currently here. So we can actually make sure we are doing the proper mental health screening before people are given guns and the opportunity to use those weapons for bad things. So banning those weapons, testing, and then also our universal background checks, I think, is a start for us. But when you think about the fact that we are currently running against somebody in Jeff Van Drew who voted no to protect the victims in domestic violence cases, to remove the ability of police officers to confiscate handguns and weapons from aggressors in cases of domestic violence. That is an issue we're talking about right now. So we can have all these conversations, but when it's time to vote, recognize that he voted no to protect victims of domestic violence.
Yes.
Down here. That way we wait for the microphone.
All right, so I think the question is the application of the Second Amendment in the 21st century. Okay, it doesn't prevent the states or the federal governments from regulating gun sales for regulating gun sales in this country. First of all, let's look at some facts. The NRA spent $55 million in expenditures and political action contributions during the 2016 elections. Now, follow the money trail. 300 million weapons are in circulation in this country. 300 million. We need to have stricter gun control laws. We need to not have a law that says it's okay to carry a concealed carry reciprocity law. In other words, I can come down from New York with my gun and bring it into New Jersey. We don't need that. We need laws that regulate gun sales. It's just that simple. The Second Amendment is the Second Amendment. But the way the law is written, we have to have regulations on it. It's just that simple. We cannot allow people to traffic in gun sales. We cannot allow Sandy Hook, Las Vegas, Texas, and what just recently happened in Parkland, Florida, to happen again. We have to leave. We have to leave. We have to live up to the expectations of our children. You see the children every day on the news. They're telling us that we need stricter gun laws. They tell us this, and we're ignoring them. We have to start to live up to the expectations of our children.
We have a couple open chairs here and up front, if you'd like to sit down. You want to sit? No? Anybody else? There's 2 open chairs. Okay. And one back there. Okay, we're going to start this time with Sean. Even though the U.S. Constitution was established to promote the general welfare, I think Nancy brought that up, we're the only industrialized nation that doesn't see providing health care to our citizens as promoting the general welfare of our population. We spend more per capita than any other nation on health care. It currently accounts for 1/6 of our GDP, making our country less competitive, and yet our nation rates below much of the world in health metrics. What would you propose are some of the solutions to this drag on our economy and a source of great anxiety for many of our citizens? How can we improve our healthcare system on the federal level to help solve this national disgrace?
So, Medicare for all, anyone? Just so you can make sure we're on the same page there. Obviously, first and foremost, Medicare for all is something that we should be working for, we should be striving for. It is a non-negotiable. It is one of the most important parts of our campaign, because a healthy country is going to be a successful country. And that's something that we need to start recognizing and investing in our citizens. And it's something that impacts me on a regular basis. I told you I'm an educator in Camden, and I'm still in school today, and these are things that I see on a regular basis. We had an issue with one of our students recently who was suffering from depression. And this student was suicidal. This student lost their health insurance. This student was not able to continue with the counseling and the medication that he needed to get the help that he needed. We were luckily able to identify before something happens. But that is reality. And it happens with so many of my kids that I work with, and I've worked with, and especially in our district as well. Affordable health care is not there. It happened to me. My wife was pregnant with our second son. She was 6 months pregnant, 1 day away from tenure, teaching in bilingual classes in Novo. She got riffed. They cut her position, they cut the program. I had to leave the school that I was at because they were going to charge me $25,000 a year for health insurance for my family. It was a private special education school that I was a principal of, but it was publicly funded, so wrap your mind around that for a second. So when we talk about the need for health care, for affordable and equitable and accessible health care, it's so incredibly important, especially for our children and our youth. And then you start thinking about our seniors, and everybody does not have this access. There is no reason why in the richest and the greatest country in the world, this is not something that every American has access to. So Medicare for all, first and foremost, and nothing less than that.
health care is a right and not an economic privilege. And that's what's unfortunate. Many people cannot afford health care in this country. Many people have had to lose health care because the premiums are so high. The goal is to move towards universal health care. Now, there are a lot of ways that we can do that, but the bottom line is we need to promote preventative care. We need to promote healthy living, healthy lifestyles. It starts there. Thank you. And of course, whatever means necessary to move towards universal health care. Now, unfortunately, I've had a look at the healthcare system. I must say, I have been fortunate that I've had health care. I've worked, my husband passed away from cancer. So I know, I can't imagine what it would have been like not having health care. I care for my mother who died from Alzheimer's. I can't imagine if she did not have health care and the Medicare benefits that she had. So to think that there are people who live in this country who cannot afford health care, who do not have access to health care, it's unimaginable to me. With the cost of health care, people could go bankrupt paying medical bills. Something needs to be done. It has to be more affordable and more accessible. Again, health care is not a privilege, for an economic privilege. It is a right of all the people in this country. Thank you.
Thank you. As a healthcare investigator in Capitol Hill, this issue comes close to home in my career. Up until last month, I was investigating pharmaceutical companies. In that capacity, I was also introducing legislation in the House of Representatives where I worked until last month. I introduced a Medicare negotiation bill for the ranking member Elijah Cummings, and we did it on a bicameral basis with Senator Bernie Sanders. Now, everyone, the candidates in this race, I am for Medicare for all. I'm the only candidate in this race that's actually taken steps, legislative steps, in D.C. to make it a reality. Medicare for All has several planks within it. One of those planks is Medicare negotiation. I helped write that legislation and I helped introduce it. What that would do is the federal government currently is not leveraging their negotiating power in the market. Like, we all know how markets work. If you have the power to negotiate, you should. We have the best negotiator in the world in the White House, and yet drug prices are still out of control. Now, if we actually do that, we have the power to drive down prices, and that is how Medicare for All, the whole package of the bill itself, actually saves the government money. It's one of 5 planks. In addition, that's one of the policies we can enact. It's not a matter of whether we should enact it, it's how, for me. Having been in D.C. and knowing how policy is made and how it's passed, getting these 5 planks passed at once is going to be difficult. It just will be. That's why we've taken the piecemeal approach. We've tried Medicare negotiation, and if we can get this through, we can try the other planks of this legislation that I dearly believe in. But there's also other things that we need to do to drive down the cost, or just make medicines accessible. Another bill that I helped introduce was drug importation, allowing American citizens to have access to products that are available for much cheaper prices abroad. This is something that I've seen. In my investigative work, I have seen it, where families have been able to purchase something for $1,200. An American company gets a hold of the formula, they introduce it here domestically for $80,000. And suddenly that's impacting your insurance premiums, because guess who's paying for that? We are. It has to change.
In a related question, one currently proposed federal budget looks to reduce spending on Medicare and Social Security by cutting benefits. Both these programs are struggling under the population bubble created by the long-lived baby boomers. What do you think is the responsibility of the federal government to fund these programs? And what, if any, either through adjustment of benefits, taxation, or reallocation of funds, would you propose to help fund these programs?
Don't believe the hype. That's what I say. Listen, Social Security, I have a husband, I have friends worked all their lives and never collected a dime from Social Security. So this whole idea is something that the Republicans are making up. That's what I believe. It's a safety net program for the citizens in this country, and I say keep your mitts off of Social Security and Medicare, and it can be done. We can find money in this country for everything else we want to find money for, so let's keep those benefits for our senior citizens. That's what I say.
When we talk about Medicare, so you guys are going to get tired of me because I'm going to be a nerd about these issues because I know how they work in DC. When we talk about Social Security and Medicare, what we have facing us is a crisis on our hands. In 2032, we are going to run out of funds. Like at the current rate that we fund these programs, we're not going to have money for the baby boomers as they age and retire by 2032. That's not very far away. We obviously have to do something about. We have to get innovative about what we're going to do. One of those things is scrapping the cap. Another is we have to get innovative about our taxation program. And you have billionaires like Warren Buffett who are saying, and Bill Gates, tax me. I care about this country deeply enough where we can actually provide the social programs to enact the American promise. This is the American promise we're talking about. You pay into a system, and when you're ready and when you qualify, you get what you paid out. That's all. It's as simple as that. It's in and out. We walk into banks all day, walk in, walk out. This is how it works. We have to be vocal about this, and we have to be proactive about it. And one of the things we don't do, and we see far too often in the federal government, is you wait until a crisis happens, and then we all out panic. We should not be waiting until 2030. 2 years, we're going to run out of money, folks. What are we going to do? No. That's not we know this is coming. We actually have the good luck and fortune to know and have 14 years to work for it. 14? Yeah. I say let's get our minds together and let's have an action group, a think group in DC to actually not talk about this in theoretic terms, but actually people who are going to go in and to a task force in DC and talk about this in a real way. I think it's possible. I think it's something that Democrats should be prioritizing once you take back the House. Thank you.
So my father is 60 years old. My father spent the last 42 years of his life working in the same glass factory. Luckily for him, he's been able to hold a job for that long. My father is on the verge of having his job outsourced right now and losing that job. Problem for him is he can't afford to retire. Social Security won't be enough. He won't be able to afford to live on that and his pension. So these are real issues that regular people in our district and in our state and in our country are facing right now. And at a time when tax cuts for millionaires and billionaires keep coming left and right, and the average American keeps getting left in the dust, we need real progressive tax cuts and tax laws. It's not complicated. When we invest in the working class, America does better. And when we make those tax cuts and we start taxing appropriately, we can then use that windfall to actually start funding these programs. And what not a lot of people want to talk about, and I'm comfortable having this conversation coming from a military family myself, is that our country spends so much money on our industrialized military complex that absolutely. So when we look at that amount of money, we are actually giving more money to the military than what the military is even asking for. So this money, let's cut back a little bit and let's make sure that the people in our country are able to retire with dignity and with class and aren't scraping every second of their last days. You work your entire life to be able to end work. My father's 60 years old and they're still working 50, 60, 70 hours a week. No person should be working that much at their age to make ends meet. We need to do better for our people.
Okay, we start with Will this time. In 2010, Harry Reid, a Democrat, wouldn't bring the Employment Non-Discrimination Act to a vote. This would have given federal employment protection to the LGBTQ community. A new bill, the American Equality Act, is now circulating around Congress looking for sponsors. As congresspersons, people, would you be willing to co-sponsor the intent of the American Equality Act? And would you speak out publicly on the bill's behalf?
Thank you. Absolutely would. As a gay individual, this is a bill that would directly impact me, people like me. It is one of those things that I firmly believe is needed. We're talking about discriminating against folks for who they are and who they love. At the end of the day, we'd be judging people by the character that they show you, not by who they love or by their race. It is one of those things where I was very proud that this bill came up. Senator Cory Booker was an original co-sponsor of this bill, and I was happy to stand beside him while he introduced it. And for a lot of Democrats, this is a no-brainer. I don't think that it would necessarily be the case for Jeff Van Drew. We've seen his voting record when it comes to same-sex marriage. He accepted a direct mailer on his behalf from an anti-LGBT group and never apologized for it. He's not one of these Democrats who involved on the issue, folks, or has remorse about his votes. That's his prerogative, but he needs to explain himself. I was open and honest about who I am tonight. How about he be open and honest about his votes when he gets here?
So, first, thank you, Will. As an educator who still works with kids on a daily basis, I deal with that specifically, and with students dealing with their identity issues. And I've had several students within the last couple of years come out and talk to me before they go home and talk to parents. And that's family, right? That's family. That should be the easiest people for you to go speak to. But it's not. So when you think about being in a workplace with people who are different than you and not being able to express who you are as a person, that's an issue. We don't treat people differently in this country. Well, we shouldn't. Or at least we have laws in place based on the color of their skin. So why do we not have laws in place that protect people based off of their own orientation and their identity and how they identify as a person? Because what this comes down to more than anything, it's an issue of love. And until we start accepting people for who they are and being able to move forward and ensure that everybody has these equal opportunities and rights, we're never going to move forward as a country. And how are we going to be able to look at our youth and say, you know what, it's okay for you to be who you are, when we're not ensuring that the adults and the people out there are being protected? So absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt, that is something that I would co-sponsor from day one. It's something that's incredibly important to me as an individual who has gay siblings. It's something that is incredibly important. I always remember the struggles that I've seen with one of my siblings growing up. So it's real, it's true, and thank you for being honest and open in this forum. I have a lot of respect for that, so thank you again.
Yes, yes, yes. I started my campaign. Basic civil rights, basic human rights, economic, educational, political, and social equality. That's what my campaign is about, and that's what it's always been about. Now, they said to me, well, you know what? You're a progressive. So I said, okay, well, then I'll own that title, because that is what I am about. Basic human rights. Everyone, we are all the same, all of us. And everyone has the right to equal opportunities. That is what this country was founded on and based on. So we cannot deny people any right based on anything, the color of their skin, their gender, their sexual preferences. We have no right to do that. We are all equal. And listen, what we need to do in this country is we need to look at each and every one of us and see that we share something. We are all humans. We are all the same. We all bleed the same. We need to unite. We need to come together. We need to stop telling people what they can and can't not do. How can I tell somebody who they should or should not love? Who has the right to do that? How can I tell somebody where they can and cannot live? Who has the right to do that? No one. You're right. We're all equal here. You better believe it. And you know what? We need lawmakers who are going to see to it that laws are applied for everyone, equal across the board.